What's up, everybody? It's Chad from Ask Chad Grassy Logic again with another episode this week. I am here with my friend Haley Grant. She's an attorney here in New Mexico, but I'll let her introduce herself here in a minute. We're going to be having an episode today called Birthday Hookups and Sesh, or The Sesh. I'm going to give you guys some updates, of course, on the legislative session. And it was my birthday this past week on Tuesday. So I want to tell you guys on the birthday hookups that the dispensary gives you and the ones they used to give you. So without further ado, Haley, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. As I said, I'm Haley Grant, and I'm from Mynatt, Martinez Spring. I'm an attorney here in Las Cruces. And just before we kind of get into things here, the thing that makes my malpractice career warm and fuzzy is when I give disclaimers like this one, which is everything that I present today is purely for educational purposes. I'm not giving any legal advice, and I'm not a tax attorney. I'm also not providing any tax advice or anything like that. So take it as it comes.
I kind of feel like we should have had like that dude to say it really fast at the beginning.
If only I could talk that fast.
Oh, me too, right? Well, I appreciate you being on the show. It's great. I've known you for about like a year now or so. And you've been, actually a lot of people know you in the cannabis industry now. A lot of newer people that I've met, they know who you are. So you've been doing, leaps and strides in the industry. And it's a great service that you do provide. And a lot of people kind of overlook, there's a few things that people overlook. They overlook security and they overlook lawyers. And, those are the two things that are going to bite you in the butt in the end, if you have the lack of those. So it's great that, we have someone like you that's willing to say, hey, yeah, I'll work with the cannabis people. Heck yeah. So it's great to have that perspective too, because even during the pre-show, you're giving me perspectives I didn't even think of, because you have that lawyer thought process, kind of like, I guess, when I go in the grow, or when someone talks about a plant, I'm like, I could grow it like this. Okay, yeah, or something different. So it's really cool to see that. So yeah, I appreciate you being on the show. And without further ado, let's get on to the show and everything. So let's talk about birthday hookups. When is your birthday, Haley?
It's October 22nd.
Oh shoot! So it just kind of passed.
It's not for a good long way, but
yeah.
That's what it is. So
all right, well, happy very belated birthday.
Okay.
Did you go to any dispensaries or anything for it like that at all, or?
I didn't. Oh, you know why? Because I was at Lucky Leaf.
Ah, okay. Well, yeah, you can smoke that anyway.
Yeah, I was with that. Yeah, that's why. Okay.
That makes sense. Well, in New Mexico, I'm sure on your birthday, a lot of dispensaries will give you like a birthday gift. And the way it used to be is totally different than the way it is right now. The way it is right now is they have to charge you something, either a penny or whatever. They can't just give you something for free. And that actually changed a little bit on the medical side. And it wasn't like super, super enforced, but they didn't like it. And it was a part of the law. I can't remember on the top of my head what year it was changed, but it wasn't that long ago that they actually changed it in the medical industry side anyway. So what you do is you go around, you tell them it's your birthday, and some places will give you $5 off. Some of them, it's like if you buy something from us, we'll give you 1 penny pre-roll. Some of them will give you a half gram pre-roll, and all these include you have to buy something. You can't just go in, because I'll go into the way it used to be. The way it used to be was you'd walk in, tell them it's my birthday, and they would just hand you a doobie, or they would hand you a gram for free, or hand you an edible for free. And you can do that at every shop you go to. So there was people that would literally show up with like 2 ounces of just free weed that they got from all the dispensaries. Mm-hmm. And the DOH didn't like that. So did you ever get a chance to like experience that at all, or?
No, I haven't yet. So no, that's not come up in my practice, and personally, I haven't run into it yet either. So
well, I mean, everybody's kind of abiding by that whole penny thing now. So
yeah,
they're not giving free weed away anymore. Even a dude who like did try to give me a free weed away, he just had me give him a penny.
Yeah, no, right? Yeah.
Exactly. I'll give you a doobie here, give me a penny.
Just marketing the system, you're good to go, right?
It's the way it goes. So if it's your birthday, go around to dispensaries, give them a call. If you don't want to like go around, waste your gas, give them a call, see what they offer. A couple places I did call, because I did call. I called around a few places, didn't offer anything, and like I guess it never dawned on them, and they're like, "Oh, that's actually a really good idea." And I was like, "All right." So maybe they'll add that at some point. So if it's your birthday, I mean, I know a lot of people actually have their birthday in February. It's the weirdest like phenomenon I've known since I was a kid. Like most of my family, our birthdays are in February. Like my older sister, my cousins, like it's weird. And there's like 8 birthdays, like all in this month in my family. It's so strange. And so, yeah, if it's your birthday and everything, guys, do it. So the reason why this changed was the DOH just didn't like it. And I think legislature actually passed something, I want to say 2018 is what I want to say is when it really, really officially changed. And then from then on, they couldn't like give birthday giveaways. Because there was actually, it was so common that I'll say her name, Tiffany Witowski. I hope I said your name right. She was one of the advocates with us. She made a list. She had a whole like spreadsheet of every dispensary, what they give, and what the hookup that they give you, like what it is. And like people would
Yeah.
ask for it all of the time.
Well, I remember at Date Times they used to have a listing
Yeah.
of everywhere you could go to get it, and
Yeah.
then that wasn't even that long ago. It was maybe like 6 months ago. So I think some were just operating sort of under the radar,
Probably.
but I mean,
Yeah.
a penny's is free, so
Yeah.
it's just a hoop you have to jump through, I guess.
Yeah, it's just another bureaucracy. Just another hoop we got to go to jump through. You're right. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much for the birthday stuff. I'm not going to tell you individual places to go to. That's going to be up to you to figure it out. Some people don't live in Las Cruces, so that wouldn't work anyway. So just give a call if you have your favorite place that you go to all the time. Just ask them. I mean, even if it's not your birthday is going to come around at some point within the year. So it's probably a good idea to ask them before you have to call them at some point. So at least you know. And then even if it is your birthday, still give them a call. Maybe they change their policy. Maybe they're given, instead of a half gram pre-roll, it's a 1 gram pre-roll, and then it has to be with a certain amount of purchase. Because one guy said if you spend $6 here, and then you get the penny pre-roll. So some places might add that. So I don't know. I mean, and to you, how do you feel like as a consumer yourself, not just as someone, but like as a consumer, like how does that make you feel? Like I have to pay a penny, for my present, but is it like really that big of a deal or?
Oh no, I don't think it's a big deal. In fact, for some of my clients, I'm like, no, I'll just pay for both because cash flow for all kinds of operators right now is low. So it's like I'll give you the extra money.
Here's some tips too.
Right? Yeah.
I've noticed that too. That the operators, they have been a little low, and I think it's because we've added so many dispensaries that the less places have less people to go to. Because I went last month with Tyler, one of the guys here at the Ask Chad Grassy Logic. We went around and we were talking to some of the businesses, and we noticed it was like ghost towns. Like even some of the most busiest places in the city was dead. Like it was weird.
I mean, I know one dispensary that's been killing it, and they pull in like $1,500 a day, and
Really,
which is good. But a lot of other dispensaries are much less than that. Sometimes they won't have anybody show up in a day. So we're going to see some attrition here coming up soon, probably tax season, I would imagine, for those who can't hold on anymore.
Yeah, and that's going to happen. It's sad to say in the industry, and especially in a new industry, this is going to happen. And it's good and bad. It's good because the industry gets to grow, and you get to see who's going to stick around. The people that have done it right, whatever the reason is, they're here still. And the people that are not, it weeds out things. And then we probably won't have as many dispensaries next year as we do this year. I see quite a few, as you said, shutting down come tax season, because that's a really good point. So yeah, if you guys are in an area that can do it or that does it, go ahead. If not, I don't know what to tell you. Ask your buddy who grows. So yeah, that's about it for the birthday hookups. We're going to go down now and talk some about the bills. So that's what I mean with the session, the title. I want to update you guys, about the legislative session, what's going on, all the bills going through. There's a lot. I think there's 34 now, 35, like cannabis related bills or cannabis that's in the bill.
Yeah, I don't even know the number, but just tracking them has been a task.
It has, because like I don't remember all the titles of them. So when I see the number of total bills change, I'm like, crap, I don't know which one's which. And so yeah, it gets kind of lengthy. But before Haley gets into her bills, she came in with a really good list of bills. There's some really good points actually that I didn't even think of in prior episodes that I feel is actually important. She thought it was going to be boring, but I don't think it will be. A lot of people don't like the lawyer stuff and the law stuff. I find it interesting, but this is some stuff that could help you guys in the long run, and could keep you out of having to pay a lot of fees either to the state and lawyers at the same time. So the first bill I want to talk about is HB 493. It has to do with seed to sale. So what this does is it's having the state create a seed to sale system, meaning our BioTrack that we use right now would be no longer used, and we would make something ourselves. Now, how do you feel about that? Like, what's your personal opinion on that? I mean, I know we just want to give.
Well,
it's hard to get around it.
It could be great or it could be terrible, and I think that's dependent on a number of factors. Number one is how much is the legislature going to appropriate towards whatever software development needs to happen. Who's going to be in charge of finding the software developer, and then who is that? What are their capabilities? Because this is not really something that I've seen done in a state before at this kind of scale. And so, yeah, it depends on a lot. It's in the statute right now, but I'd like to see how the regulations, if there are going to be some, what they would look like, and who's going to be spearheading all that. So I'm I'm cautiously optimistic at this point that at least the state is recognizing that there's an issue and doing something pretty drastic to address it. And I think that they're really listening to a lot of the, I guess, the key actors in the business in terms of trying to improve the legislation. So it's a good first step, I think.
No, yeah, it is, and I'm in the same boat with you. How I feel personally, however you guys feel is however you feel. But personally, I feel it depends on who makes it, how much funds is being sent to. Because if we get $100 app, then it's going to act like $100 app. The company that's they're working with. Wait, no, that's for the UNM research one. Sorry, there's no company they're working with. We have a UNM research thing to talk about later, and I mixed those two in with it, guys. So stay tuned for that one. That's actually really cool. So for this one, whatever the company is that gets this contract, it's really going to depend on them too. Maybe it's going to be a legislator's friend. I have no clue. I hope not.
Well, so for some background, when the state when they want to create a contract, they can't just say, I want to contract with you. It has to go through a bidding process.
Yeah.
So they prepare what's called a request for proposal and an invitation to bid, so that different contractors in different places will prepare a proposal and submit that, and then the state will review it. I'm not sure who would be reviewing it in this instance, if it's the CCD but it goes to like a process until it's approved. So there are quite a few steps in that process, and it can take some time. They've got to develop the parameters, and there are some set parameters in terms of cost and locality. Local software developers will probably be preferred over others, and different factors that they have to consider. So it has to go through kind of a somewhat lengthy process, and then once the state decides who it's going to go with, then it goes through and executes the contract with them. So there's a lot to be ironed out before we even get to that point. So.
Oh, I mean, I'm glad you've been dealing with contracts quite a bit. I'm glad you know about the process and everything, because I'm not too sure how that process of the contracts work. Everyone knows, lowest bidder usually wins. Especially when I was in the military, we'd get equipment, and the joke was, lowest bidder won, because it would be really crappy. So let's hope that's not the case. Let's hope it's a decent company that's doing it for a decent price that the government will go for. And let's just, I guess, wait. That's all we can do, really, is wait and see. I mean, this is just a bill that was introduced. It's not passed or law or anything yet. So we'll see. But I mean, yeah, that's all we can really say about it, because it's a really short bill. It's like, what, a page long?
Yeah, no, it's really kind of just announcing what this software hopes to do, which is replace BioTrack, and you could really just say that, and that pretty much encapsulate what the purpose of the bill is going to be. So, but It's been what everybody hates BioTrack. That's been that's first or second on everybody's list in terms of what they've told me they want change. So they're listening.
No, definitely, and I'm glad they're listening, and they're keeping the channels open, because a lot of states in their industry, they don't listen to the people in the industry. They just change it without, like, hey guys, how would this make it easier for you?
Right, exactly.
Like, could you operate easier, or why are we having an issue, or we're having this issue, why? And then they could say, well, it's because of BioTrack and this and this and this. Oh, let's fix it.
Right. I did hear, I can't remember who was telling me this, but apparently Duke Rodriguez was involved in getting BioTrack to come to New Mexico. And I guess, I don't know whether this is true or not, so I won't say who told me. But he apparently, Ultra Health may have received some information from other businesses, BioTrack, because they were involved so early on and before they had ironed things out. I don't know whether that's true or whether that was just like some technical glitch. So a lot of people are just generally uncomfortable with BioTrack, and then the story of how it came here. And of course, it's also based on MS-DOS, which was developed like in the 1970s.
Oh my God, MS-DOS. Yeah. I think we had a computer when I was a kid that had MS-DOS on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like to play Wolfenstein, you had to do like D drive / and like find. Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know. I never had to operate it that much in at that scale, and so I have no clue. But yeah, it looks like it's a pain to work with, and everybody I've talked to, they call it BioTrash. Like that's its like official nickname is BioTrash. Yeah. So I think it's good, because we've had issues with BioTrack since we've been using it here in New Mexico. And I think it would be a good idea for us to maybe look at another avenue, and hopefully we can create that avenue, and it can be a great one. But time will tell. So moving on, speaking of bills, Haley brought in a really good list of bills, and I go ahead and just tell the people about all these cool bills, the little stuff that's in it. Some of these I've talked about, guys, But there's other stuff in it that I didn't mention before that she's going to touch on. And, coming from a mind of a lawyer,
Right.
she thinks a little different.
Well, I think we wanted to start with the cannabis nurseries, or should I say the absence of cannabis nurseries. So in
Yes.
HB 313, which was originally, I guess, designed to add a license for cannabis nurseries, that's now been struck entirely, which, although my opinions do not reflect the opinions of my clients, I'm personally very happy about, because I think that getting a cannabis license is very expensive, and if you just want to sell clones, you should be able to do that without having to be regulated and taxed, and um, really meet all the strict standards that everybody else in the business has to. So I think that's good. So that's no longer there. But there are a number of other things that have been added to 313 that have to deal with enforcement,
Okay.
and the disciplinary process. So before 313, if there was any kind of issue with somebody's licensure, that you would have to follow the processes in terms of like due process and challenging things that was provided under the Uniform Licensing Act.
Okay.
That's now changed. They created a whole new format for how you can challenge um, a, a violation of the CCD, basically. So for one thing, they can now suspend or revoke your license and or levy $1,000 fine if they find a material false statement or that you've concealed a material fact in your application or permit.
Oh.
So basically, what that means, a material false statement or a material fact, is just means it's a fact that matters, right?
Mhm.
So if maybe you had your camera layout wrong in your premises diagram, something like that, that's not the kind of issue that they're looking for. They're looking for maybe you didn't identify a controlling person, or you don't have a camera system, you don't have a security system, and you have something that's false in your application. So they might hit you with something like that. You will have the right to a hearing, but the CCD can still suspend your license before the hearing with or without notice, pending prosecution or in that public hearing. So if you want to have that, if you want to raise that right to your hearing, you have to request it before the action actually takes effect. So it's and these hearings themselves are really for lawyers, because the rules of evidence apply. They have subpoena rights. There's a hearing officer, so it's kind of like a mini trial that they hold. And so if you're a layperson, it's going to be very difficult for you to navigate something like that, because you have to know how to admit exhibits and authenticate documents and do all sorts of things that you would have to do in a trial, because the rules of evidence apply. So with that in mind, I guess it's just another reason to get a lawyer, which is unfortunate, because I have two minds about this, because I mean, there's some people you misrepresent something intentionally, you should have to account for that. But of course, like I said earlier, this doesn't account for accidental errors and that kind of thing. So that's something else to consider. They've also added some provisions also in 313 for just general violations, right? So they do, of course, have the right to suspend or revoke your license. And if they do revoke or suspend your license, you can appeal it to district court. But again, that's another reason you have to go and get a lawyer, right?
Another processes.
Right. And they can suspend your license now if they find there's an imminent threat to public health, safety, or welfare, or there's a deliberate or willful violation. So that's kind of two classes of ways that you can find yourself in trouble with the CCD. And I guess thinking about this as a lawyer, what is imminent, what is an imminent threat, and what is a threat to public health, safety, or welfare? Some things like if you have bud rot in your pre-rolls, that bud rot can send you to a hospital. That's understandable.
Really hurt you, yeah.
But the question is what kinds of threat is that? What threats are those going to include? And then, of course, deliberate or willful violations. So I would imagine that's probably motivated by people bringing in cannabis from out of state and generally, being non-compliant in ways that I guess the CCD probably thinks are significant. But in other words, really tighten up your compliance, because if you get dinged, it could get expensive in terms of fines and having to hire a lawyer to defend you on all those things. And of course, insurance is always a problem for cannabis, so it's likely you're going to have to pay for all that stuff out of pocket. So you might as well, if you can, start shopping for insurance to see if there's any possibility that might get you coverage.
It's funny. Last episode was about insurance, so guys, get on that.
I know.
You're being told twice already to get some insurance.
Yeah. I guess the other thing, in keeping with cannabis that's coming in from out of state, if you're a business and you're unlicensed and you've been dealing in cannabis, then the state can come in and claim your product under the
really?
New Mexico Forfeiture Act.
Yeah.
And that act is existed typically for drugs and other illicit types of products. But what that means is that law enforcement can come and take your product, and they can hold it, and then a court has to enter an order if there's a substantial probability that your cannabis is actually subject to forfeiture. If they figure out that it's not maybe tracked through BioTrack, for instance.
Because that's a big thing, some people try to skip that.
It's really huge.
Yeah.
And then if they're worried that you're going to destroy the cannabis to try to get rid of the evidence, if a court suspects that might happen, depending on the nature of the violation, then they might come back and also enter an order just taking it from you altogether. So
oh wow,
it's pretty significant. And like I said, if law enforcement catches one, they can just come in and they'll take your product. So it's just something to keep an eye out for.
And this is stemming from all the out-of-state cannabis,
right? I suspect that it is, and that's the example that really comes to mind, right? Yeah. But otherwise, there's several other things happening. I guess since we're talking about negative things, I think we could talk about there's a new distribution for the excise tax. So the portion of the tax that goes to the counties, it's 33.33%. That is now going to be distributed into 2 grant funds. One is they called it the Community Reinvestment Act, or grant rather. So that just goes towards schools, higher education, and different county or even municipal grants, so that they can, I don't know. There's a list of everything. Education has to do cannabis education, substance abuse, and then there's another grant that's similar for disorder prevention, and some of it includes like paying for halfway houses to treat substance abuse. So I think that's kind of cool. So there's some cool stuff in there. But other than that, and we talked about 365, right? Advertising to kids.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, if you want to talk about it, we can talk about that.
Well, I think you have more information. I'll weigh in.
Yeah. So thank you for that. So 365, guys, that was pretty much just a ban on like edibles and targeting kids what they want. So like, I don't think they'll want people, or they'll be able to sell actual gummies in like a bear, like in the shape of a bear anymore. And that's kind of significant for the industry, because a lot of us are used to just these wacky little shapes and stuff like that. I mean, you had the Mike Tyson ear ones for a little bit. I don't know if they're still going or not. But you had that one was hilarious. If you guys don't know, back in the day, Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear, not his whole ear off, he bit a chunk of it off, and the gummy itself was an ear with a little bit of the ear chunk off.
I don't know if that's geared towards children, but hey, I'd try it.
Yeah, I would too. I'd be like, I'll eat that.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, who knows, maybe lollipops, even that's kind of what it sounds like to me, even lollipops, and down to I don't know, Skittles, like the sour strips or stripes, whatever those. I love those.
Oh, the straws?
Yeah, the straws and the stripes, the little bands.
Oh, yeah, the flat ones. Okay,
yeah, those are good. I mean, I found them only a few places, but we couldn't have those either. Or the ropes.
I mean, but you haven't seen like little. They'll have like fan leaf shaped ones. And, yeah. I mean, if I were a business, I'd just get ahead of it by trying to stay away from those kinds of things anyways, and because they're like different trademark lawsuits too on things that look like Cheetos or different other major brands, and so you don't want these other companies hassling you, even though the products that they typically market to our children, it's like just best to steer clear from all that stuff.
I have a feeling we're going to see a bunch of dicks. I have a feeling that's coming.
You had to go there.
I had
You
to go there.
right?
I have a feeling that's coming. Someone's gonna do it, and I know it. I'm gonna laugh too when I see it. I might buy it just because it's funny.
It already exists. Somebody's already made it. Chad.
If you guys already have that existence in your shop, hit me up. You know, I'll check it out because that's pretty funny. So yeah, that's pretty much what that part of the 364. Just banning it. I'm not banning it, but banning stuff that like kids will think is candy and stuff like. And to be honest, they had that issue with pills. Being younger. I don't know if you remember all the Dare stuff and like this pill looks like a Skittle, but it's not a Skittle. This pill looks like this candy, but it's not. And I think we're gonna have to go through that period of parents need to parent.
They do. They do.
And so yeah, that's pretty much what I had for 364.
I've got there's another change to the excise tax, and it was originally HB 147, but then the Senate came in and it had a substitution, so it's now SB 147.
Okay.
But if you know anything about the excise tax, it's assessed at the retail level. So, but they've now changed that, and they've changed it in an interesting sort of way, so they can avoid what's called tax pyramiding, where they have layers and layers of tax, so that if the product is taxed at a lower rate, the earlier it is in the supply chain, right? So now it's taxed based on the location, and I mean real location, like the address of the purchaser.
Really?
So it's a pretty funky one. I don't know if it's gonna stay in this form or not, but the way that it works is, so if let's say you're a wholesaler, right? So you're not gonna do things on the retail side of things, but if you're at your own building, right, and the product comes to you there, you're in charge of paying the excise tax. But if you're a retailer and your product's delivered from the grower to the retailer pays the excise tax. So I don't know how they're going to track this. I mean, I don't know the discussions that went into this, and I'm not a tax attorney, so I'm sure they have some logic behind this, and I would hope that they're getting information from Tax and Rev, which I'm sure that they are. But that one's kind of interesting. So
that is interesting.
It
seems confusing to me because right now it's just kind of a blanket thing. We're just taxing it there, and that's it. So you got to worry about it. Now it's like, well, depending on where the dog sniffed its butt, and if that light's turning green right now, and we'll see if that sticks. We'll see.
Yeah, and I would imagine that there's going to have to be for statutes. Sometimes the way statutes are written, there's some room for interpretation right in the regs, and so I wonder how. Because I imagine there's got to be a fix. If it's passed this way, then Tax and Rev might have to go through and change the regs, which just makes it all that much more complicated. But we'll see how that actually all shakes out. But if the Senate came in and inserted this into the bill, then it could pass. We'll see how if it makes its way to the House. But I guess the other thing is, and this has come up recently, somebody was telling me they couldn't pay their employment taxes because they deal in cash, right?
Yeah.
So if you're dealing in cash and the Tax and Rev doesn't take cash, how are you supposed to pay, right? And so I think this is probably dealing with that kind of a fix, because it just bank accounts, they're just not really much of a thing in cannabis, right? So you now can renew your license if you're delinquent on your taxes, as long as it's not related to the excise tax or your gross receipts tax. So like employment taxes, property taxes, other things, you can be delinquent on those things. And I'm sure a lot of people are because just of the cash flow problems at the moment, but you can still be licensed and you can still operate. Of course, that doesn't mean that necessarily that Tax and Rev isn't going to be angry at you and that you might have other obligations there and you might be delinquent. They go after you on that side of things, but at least it doesn't get in the way of your license.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a lot of people kind of hate tax. They don't want to think about taxes. It's kind of confusing. I mean, especially when they do stuff like that. It can get confusing. And sometimes it's like, are they doing this on purpose? Like, what the heck? So yeah, and there's a few excise tax bills that I know are in session right now. Is this the one that's just the most predominant, or?
Yeah, that was one. The other one that I talked about, the distribution, that was really just the distribution on the state county side of things.
Which wasn't bad. I mean, I'm all for education, getting more funds,
Yeah, it's out there. And then, I think we talked about this a little bit ago, the embargo. So I guess we're going back here to what is this? 313.
Yeah, oh yeah, HB 313. That's actually the big one.
Yeah. No, it's 313. If you read 313, that has the bulk of all the new information that's coming from cannabis, but it's also in line with moving cannabis. If the CCD discovers that,
Oh, this one's important.
yeah, that if they smell any evidence of diversion or any threat to public safety, if they have objective and reasonable grounds, they can embargo the transport of cannabis, which means that they can stop you from moving your cannabis, and they can also is it like yes, and they might destroy your product. That's the important part of it.
Ooh.
And if they do, you as the licensee are responsible for all the costs of dealing with the embargo and with the destruction of the cannabis.
Oh, that
So
sucks.
that's another reason or another way that they're trying to crack down on out of state cannabis coming into the state, which is probably good because we're not getting in the good product from out of state. We're getting the product that they don't want, and
Yeah.
that's not necessarily the best or the healthiest product. So
Yeah, because someone smoking powdery mildew, or any kind of mold, that could really harm them and send them to the hospital. And you don't want to do that, guys. I mean, if you're a producer and you're selling moldy bud, shame on you. That's not cool to do to people. That's a health risk. I get it, guys. You want to make your money and everything, but people's lives are at risk, and when it comes to that, that could really hurt somebody. So
no, and I mean there are ways. Well, I hesitate to speak when I'm not in the position of a retailer, or, because I don't know some of the nitty gritty of what they deal with, because that's just their job.
Some
but
know.
but there are very strict testing guidelines in terms of you have to pull a sample from this part of each batch, and it's strict for a reason, so they can kind of pinpoint where there might be mold. But of course, mold could also develop and transport. So there are a lot of moving factors in how bud rot might show up in your pre-roll.
And right now, the testing requirements are still kind of lax. That's one thing that we're kind of lacking in this state. And I just came from a meeting, and the guy, he told me, he's like, yeah, the state, mold and all kinds of stuff, not really testing. There's a lot of stuff's getting through it because of that. And I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Certainly for pesticides, and that's we don't even know what kind of health effects that might have on people who are buying in dispensaries. I know people who won't buy from dispensaries because they're not testing for pesticides. And that's sometimes those are legitimate concerns.
Yeah, it is. And another reason why this is happening is our lack of testing facilities in the state we live in too. And that's up in northern New Mexico. Here in the south, we're really starting to take off. And there's a lot more facilities and grows going on down there that we need it down here. So I think that's another reason why we're having that issue, is because the biggest one is just the lack of testing facilities or places to get it tested. So once that changes, I think they're probably going to crack down more on it. And hopefully they'll get a figure out on this out-of-state cannabis stuff, because it's been an issue since April 1st of last year. That's how we didn't run out of cannabis, was the out-of-state cannabis. It came from Oklahoma, it came from California, it came from Colorado, it came from Arizona. You name it, it probably came from there. And so, I think that's a good thing. Crack down on it, and like you said, we're not getting the best. We're getting the schnickel fritz. Of all the cannabis.
But I'm excited where cannabis is going to grow locally. Growing strains that work well for this environment, because I like outdoor best. So just saying, but
sun-kissed.
Sun-kissed. Yeah.
I agree too. Being a grower myself, I'm in that same boat. So yeah. But are there any other bills or anything you want to touch on?
Well, I guess the other part of 313, it's probably not the the sexiest part of the act, but because you can't file for bankruptcy or federal bankruptcy if you're a cannabis business, right? Because it's a Schedule 1 traffic substance or controlled substance. So I think the state has tried to create they created a schedule really for what happens when you dissolve your company. If you dissolve your company, you got to pay off these different debts. And then it really just tracks what's in the New Mexico Corporations Act. I won't bore you with that, but basically pay your debts. If you're a nonprofit, you have to distribute your assets to another nonprofit, and then they have different hybrid scenarios for what happens if you're going to convert from a nonprofit to a for-profit, and some different other scenarios. But at the end of doing all that, and you're not a nonprofit, the money just goes back to your shareholders typically. So, it's good to have, but nothing too exciting.
It's important information that's just boring.
It is.
It happens.
It's important. But
Yeah.
yeah, I am excited about, it's not state legislation, it's the 2023 Farm Bill.
Okay.
And it has to do with hemp.
And is this on the federal or state side?
It's on the federal side.
Ah,
so I
so
don't
that's
know
the
if you
big
want to transition.
No, I'd
there
love to
yet.
talk about all cannabis. I mean, this show's about cannabis. We focused on New Mexico, but if it's federal, let's talk about it.
Yeah. So the 2023 Farm Bill, just for some background, the 2018 Farm Bill was the first iteration of the Farm Bill that legalized hemp.
Mhm.
The legalization came with a requirement that the dry weight basis or dry weight amount of THC is less than 0.3%. And so that's been really difficult for hemp farmers who grow product because you don't know what your percentages are going to be until your product's done. And
Yeah.
then if it turns out that you're above that percentage, you have to destroy your product, and then all you can use is like the stalks and like the seeds or something, whatever doesn't have that amount, and you can sell that amount. But it really you can take a huge loss on if you're trying to operate in that space. So many people don't.
And it's fueled the black market. Like hot
Mhm.
hemp was the thing for a long time. I remember after that bill came out, a lot of people when we changed the law here in New Mexico for hemp farms, people were selling hot hemp like crazy. Because
Mhm.
like certain areas of the state was just so hot, it would just pop hot, and they couldn't sell it and do anything. So yeah, I mean that kind of helps. Some people, it's just going to be past the point because that's not hard to do. Get past 0.3%. That's not hard.
Yeah. No. So the good thing about the 2023 Farm Bill is that, and apparently the USDA is behind a lot of this, is they're going to increase the threshold from 0.3% to 1%, which I'm not a grower. Maybe you know more about this. Is a much easier mark to hit. So, and so they would also have a sub definition for industrial hemp that's grown for grain and fiber. So, like bags and, grain, I don't know, a hemp grain goes in, but I'm sure it goes into lots of things.
Yeah.
So grain and fiber versus like, CBD cigarettes and floral hemp, that type of thing.
Okay.
But basically with that sub definition, it would allow those kinds of industrial uses to submit backup documentation proving that they were intending to get to be beneath this 1% threshold. And so they can produce like proof of where they got their genetics. There's something called a planting report that they send to the Federal Farm Services Agency, basically just saying like, look, we intended for this to be under the threshold. And because it's being used for the material more than it is for the intoxicating effect. I think the USDA recognizes that this is not something we need to regulate as highly. So that's one change there, which would be huge. Also for CBD distillates, when you go through the distilling process, right, the THC will go up.
Yes.
And so that would be, it makes it difficult to work with certainly a 0.3%, but 1% is also difficult. So USDA, or I think it's the National Hemp Association might be pushing for this one, but they're allowing CBD distillate to be over that 1% threshold as long as before it hits the shelves, you dilute it enough so that it's below that threshold.
Okay.
So it could be good. I don't know how they would dilute it, so that's something to think about. And anytime somebody says they're diluting something in cannabis or THC, that always raises red flags.
Yeah.
But who knows how that all is gonna shake out. The last two things on the Farm Bill is they're removing the DEA certified testing. So there are very few DEA certified testing facilities, but that's the only place you could go to get your hemp tested. So recognizing that there's this shortage and you just can't move product around if you can't get it tested, they're going to allow internationally certified labs to do the testing. So hopefully all these changes make it into the final bill, but it looks like there's a pretty good support. And then the last thing, and it probably mostly important or exciting thing, is applying the 1% threshold to all cannabinoids, not just industrial hemp. So that would be CBD flower. And I don't know if you've I'm sure you've had flower that has like really low CBD or THC with like all kinds of CBD cannabinoids.
Yeah.
It can be it really has lots of health benefits. And so I think that's the goal there, is to allow people to utilize benefits without being penalized. So, hopefully this all comes to pass. And we were talking about this earlier, starting with in hemp can be a way for people to transition into cannabis eventually, because you have banks, you have financing, you have USDA grants. It's a way to develop the infrastructure and then maybe to convert it into something else. And of course, at that point, you would be federally legal, so you'd have to change some things up, and you wouldn't have all those resources. But I think that's a good way to kind of make your way into the market. And you said that you were thinking about something like that, right?
Yeah, maybe something. I mean, even if you do like a nursery, you would still be considered hemp,
Mm-hmm.
and so you'd be open to those resources. So maybe I would do something like that one day. So we'll see. But yeah, that's something great for people to really keep in mind. Federal bills, guys, you really want to keep an eye on those. Those kind of apply to every state. And the farm bill, the 2018 one, was a really good change. I'm thinking, what if, and this is just a thought in the sky with the stars, what if they add something in there that just legalizes cannabis altogether? Just sneak something in there. That'd be great. I don't
Yeah.
see it happening, but
The only thing, and it would have huge huge repercussions in a good way for cannabis, is if they just descheduled cannabis to Schedule 3, even.
Yeah.
Schedule 3. What is in Schedule 3?
I think it's MDMA in Schedule 3.
Might be.
think
I know shrooms is a Schedule 1, but
that is
or
one. And
psilocybin, but
heroin's one, yeah.
I can't think of any off the top of my head that are in that Schedule 3. But Schedule 3 is basically, I think there's some health benefit to it, but there's also still some risk of addiction. I think that's generally
Vicodin's in that one.
Yeah, it's probably like pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it is. I haven't looked at the list in a long time. I just know cannabis is Schedule 1 and it doesn't belong there. Like right now at the top of my head. Yeah. And so if they removed it totally from the scheduling, or just like you said to 3, that would help. I'm afraid if it moves to 3, that the pharmaceutical companies will take full control. That would be my fear, but I mean, it would help out a lot.
It is, but a lot of these multi-state operators, the huge ones like Curaleaf and other ones like that, are already funded by pharmaceutical money. I mean, we've got Ultra Health, that they're pharmaceutical, so it's already happening. It's just a matter of there's this dichotomy of you have alcohol, tobacco, and pharmaceutical industry, and they are already investing in cannabis, especially in Canada right now. Yeah. And so they're also fighting to keep cannabis as a Schedule 1, because I think they know it's coming, and there's only a certain so long that they can prolong it, but they are preparing to make sure that they have that foot in the door before it's legalized. Yeah, and there's a lot that's going to change once we do it, and they see that, and they're kind of trying to, I guess, stall it for as long as they can, because the pharmaceutical companies are losing a lot of money from the recreational medical cannabis throughout the states. It's a huge chunk coming from them, and they see it and they know it. I think they're just trying to build up enough until they're like, all right, we're good, you're here, put it out. So we'll see, and maybe they will add that into the bill or something, or I don't know, maybe Biden will wake up one day and just deschedule it. Who knows? But is that all you have for the bills and everything, or for that bill? I think so. I think yeah.
Okay, so I actually wanted to touch on one more bill, and it was just something that I've touched before. I talked about this, guys. It was when they were changing the definition in the Land and Air Compassionate Use Act from what a safety sensitive position is. And I've talked about it. They're just pretty much removing or adding it to where it's if you're carrying a gun, pretty much. If you have a job, you're a cop, got to carry a gun, then you won't be protected by this. The news stations are now reporting it as firefighters will be able to toke. And I thought that was funny. It is getting some headlines, and it is a good change. I kind of feel that they should just let everybody use cannabis outside of work, off hours, when you're not working. But, we'll see where it goes. I mean, how do you feel about, that change?
I mean, I think it's pretty reasonable. I mean, although I definitely know people who can function on cannabis, it's just too hard to determine who has tolerance and who can function. And for a job like that, you don't want to leave any gray area in terms of functionality. And then you have all kinds of liability lawsuits for people if it turns out somebody was high on the job and they killed somebody. Then that's going to be pretty problematic. So I think I'm generally on board with it. Yeah, me too. I like that. And, the firefighter thing, off duty, of course, like that would be the best, that's what they're pushing for. So I think they should be able to use cannabis too, like they go through a lot of shit, those guys, they put their bodies through a lot of shit. They see a lot of things, they see things that I don't even want to see.
I mean, or things I haven't seen since Iraq,
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah.
So, they see some pretty gnarly stuff. My cousin, he does it in Colorado, and he's got some stories, poor guy.
Yeah, I bet.
So, yeah, I mean, cannabis, and it's not just for firefighters, guys. Like I said, this is for any job where you're not pretty much carrying a gun. So, it could be, you work at the fire station, you're a secretary, and, maybe you couldn't do that. So, stuff like that, or anybody, it just gives more protection to the patients because there's still a stigma. And then we still get discriminated against all the time just for having a cannabis card or even being in the community. So this just gives us more protection. I know in Alamogordo, one of my friends had an issue getting hired by the county or the city. She had a medical cannabis card, and they told her, well, we don't know if you're going to be hired or not. And so hopefully this will help instances of that not happen as much. But I told her, I was like, stuff like that's probably just going to be handled by the court, dude. Like,
Yeah.
you just have to take them to court for that.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, employers are not supposed to discriminate against medical patients, right? For testing positive, right?
Yeah.
Of course, that doesn't include getting high on the job, but
Yeah.
but it also depends on the job that you're doing, like you
Mhm.
said. So, and it does matter in certain instances.
Yeah.
If you're doing my taxes, probably I don't want you smoking weed while you're doing them, but that's something else. That's small fries. We're talking about, cops with guns and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you're talking about my money versus someone's actual life. So
Yeah.
it's different. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want to lose money, but you also don't want to lose life.
Sure.
So yeah, you don't want to shoot the wrong person. And that happens sober. So, add something else to it, then it probably makes it worse. So that's pretty much all I had for bills. Do you have anything else for bill wise? And if not, we'll move on to our last two topics.
I think I'm all set. So
Cool. Yeah. Well, that was your guys' weekly legislative update. It was a long one, guys, but there was quite a bit that we had to talk about. And Haley gave some really good perspectives that I really enjoyed. So thank you for that, and some educational pieces for myself and
thank you.
for the public and everybody watching. So moving on, we're going to talk about the Raw lawsuit, or the Raw suit as I called it last week. They actually came out this week with a statement. I put it on my Instagram page, so you guys can go read it a few times, come up to your own conclusions. But pretty much what it said was just clarifying from their point of view and from their side of what happened, the reason of this and that. The Raw Charity Foundation doesn't exist, but it was pretty much a blanket statement for all of the places they do donate to. And before the show, we were talking, and you mentioned, yeah, a lot of companies do that, and they do, and I agree. Just tell us.
But that marketing.
Oh, that marketing power! I know. So yeah, if you guys want to see what he said, it's on his page, on his Instagram, the rock and roll whatever, on his Instagram, and it's on mine. If you follow me, just go read it. I just want to touch base on that, let you guys know that they did make a public statement. I'm not going to read it verbatim or try to just give you a summary of pretty much what it was. They did apologize for the packaging thing. They did apologize for that, and any other misleading stuff. But going forward, they're going to try to whatever. So yeah, I mean, if you guys, again, if you like Raw, if you hate Raw, whatever, I'm probably going to continue to use Raw. It's one of the most available papers that you can find in the market. And to me, it's just business, and that's the way it goes. I don't know about you. Are you still going to use Raw, or do you use Raw in the first place?
I do.
Okay.
I switch around sometimes, but it's pretty much Raw.
Yeah,
times.
me too. And sometimes I just get given Raw.
Like, yeah. No, I still have stuff from Lucky Leaf that I have around.
Yeah. See, yeah, you just
Yeah.
throwing around. Yeah. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about for that. I mean, do you have any thoughts or anything about that statement? Or
no, I mean, I'd be curious to see what that lawsuit was about, because part of what they said in their statement was that they sued, I don't know, it was some other company for infringement. It wasn't very specific, and so I'd be curious to see how that lawsuit actually shook out, because they said they collected like $900 and some thousand in damages, plus another $40,000 something like that in punitive damages. So when you get just a very brief overview of a lawsuit, that doesn't really tell you the story, because there are procedural grounds for how a lawsuit could have resolved. But when you win a lawsuit, sometimes companies try to tout it as, look, I was in the right, but then it was some other issue or some other thing that kind of got to that point. So
they were wrong, but in the end, they still got some money. It's pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know the claims. That'll tell you
True.
what was brought. But certainly, when you win something, you want to tell everybody that you won. So.
True. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we lost a lawsuit. We still won.
Right.
Yeah. So I thank you for that perspective too. That's something that a lot of us don't really get to hear every day. Because we're not lawyers, and a lot of us in the cannabis industry, don't really know many lawyers unless we need one. So yeah, I figured this would be something big to talk about, something the whole industry has been, chatting about. There's people who jump ship from Raw and I hate you forever. You guys are the devil, and sitting there downing sweets. But I just kind of felt like I needed to update you guys on pretty much what was said, because I talked about it last week, and it was pretty significant. They're giving their side of what happened. I like to say there's three stories to every or three sides to every story: your side, their side, and the truth. And so they gave our side, and you guys figure it out, come to your own conclusions, and you guys figure out your own truth there. So that's it for the Raw lawsuit, or the Raw suit. I want to talk about our last topic. This one's actually pretty cool because it came from New Mexico. So UNM created, I guess they're claiming, the first IDing structure for cannabis, and they use it chemically. Now, I remember Israel working on something similar, about 6 or 7 years ago. They were using straight terpenes, just the terpenes. Now, what UNM is doing is they're using terpenes and other cannabinoids, which is cool because you're not just relying on one thing to, figure out what it is. You're relying on a few things. And they're working with a Relief app, and I guess that's what they're using. I've heard about this app a long time ago. I'm not too keen on how it works or whatever. I just know about it. And so what they're doing is they're trying to ID. And if you guys don't know, strains or cultivars of cannabis. And when you have Alaskan Thunderfuck, or you have Blue Dream, or you have Bubba Kush, those are the ones that they're trying to figure out, because these days everything's so bastardized and hybridized that we don't know what it is. And there's so many different phenos of the same strain, and the different seeds. It's really hard to tell. And so when you get into the nitty gritty, we just have no clue, and we're really just making it up. At this point, some dude is smoking it, telling people how it makes him feel, and they're going off of that. And so I think it's good that we're doing this, and it goes back to me saying that when you have legalization, you have innovation. When you don't stagnate anything. Now we're getting this innovation, which could possibly be used for other industries. Not just the cannabis industry. Other ag industries may be able to use this in some way, or maybe it came from the ag industry, because growing in the cannabis side and working with more of the ag guys, I've learned that we were so far behind. I felt stupid because we just weren't aware of certain things that they are,
Right.
because they have at free will all this stuff, and we had to hide it for so long, like
Right.
carbon filters and all that. So I think it's good. I mean, what's your thought on this?
No, I think it's good too. And I mean, I love talking to people about terpenes because people don't realize terpenes are in all kinds of things. They're
Yeah.
not just in cannabis, fruits and vegetables, and a lot of what was I thinking of, like raspberry, and different berries have carophyllene. And so, you can go to different plant and get the same thing you get in cannabis. And so
Yeah.
I think it's an excellent way of, I mean, I don't know how the genetics works in terms of tracking and identifying on the other agricultural side of things. I mean, patents and all those things, they track things that way.
Yeah.
But in terms of how they identify, I'm just not that kind of attorney or expert. But it's good. Yeah, it's all good things. I'd be excited to see how that would be used here. Because we have such a dry, arid climate. There are certain strains that work better here. And so, with that kind of tracking, it would be a good resource for people to know, like, okay, stay away from this particular cultivar because it's very water heavy and it's not going to do well.
Yeah.
And you have good bud structure. You avoid whatever kinds of pests we get around here, and it's just designed for the environment. So,
yeah. And in New Mexico, we kind of have a longer growing season than most of the places that grow cannabis too. So there's certain cultivars that, have a longer season, and it's a good cultivar. It's just you can't grow it like, say, in Colorado, because, it gets cold in like, September, and here, I'm chilling in shorts till like Christmas, and, then it starts getting really cold. And so, it gives, more opportunities. So yeah, more opportunity to know what you're growing and how to grow it, because it does make a big difference, in your climate and the different cultivar, because some don't like that much sun, some don't need that much water, some want more and more water. And I tell people this all the time when it comes to growing: your grow is going to be as good as your genetics. If you don't have good genetics, you're just going to have a bad time. I've grown genetics that, had hermaphrodited genetics within it. Hermy draw me the first time. So, I mean, I learned my lesson there. Just don't do that. Don't trust genetics that you just aren't sure of. If your buddy gave you a bag, oh, I found this in my weed, bro, you want to grow it? Probably don't want to grow that.
don't grow it outside because you're gonna ruin pollinate all the
Oh God, I
everything
know.
around you for miles.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, let's talk about that real quick, very fast. If you guys are gonna grow outside, please be cautious of your males and hermaphrodites. Go on them. I'm gonna have a grow show at some point.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this and how to identify them and everything. But if you just get rid of them, it's gonna make everybody's life better. Because if you don't, that shit can travel miles, like
Yeah.
very far. And we have a lot of wind here with little rain, so it goes even further. My dad, he got some seeded cannabis last year in his grow, and I think it was one of the neighbors down the street had a male that didn't pull out in time, because he didn't have any males. I checked, and so yeah, I mean that's a good point. You make there. Yeah, if you guys are gonna do it, please give it males.
Yeah. No, it can be devastating, especially, but like you said, if you have a healthy plant, if you have plants that just aren't meant for this environment, you're growing to scale, like
Yeah.
that's going to be a huge loss,
Yeah.
right? So
Definitely. I
makes
mean,
sense.
no one wants seedy cannabis in that aspect unless you're a breeder. And when you're a breeder, you do it indoors. You don't do it outdoors.
Right? Yeah.
So, but anyway, guys, that's pretty much the UNM cannabis research, what they're working on. I think it's really cool. UNM has been one of the leading colleges in the nation when it comes to cannabis research. So shout out to you guys. From New Mexico, so just up north in Albuquerque. So that's really cool to see that we're getting that. Maybe they'll start testing it here in New Mexico. Maybe we'll be the first test bed.
That would be really awesome.
I would sign up for it. So if you guys want to check out that study, it's actually published in the Journal of Cannabis Research. I don't know where to find it, but that's what the paper said, or the article said is where it's at. So I'm sure you guys can Google it and figure out where to find that. So it is published. So that's pretty cool to see that it's published. It's probably going to have to be scrutinized and studied more. But yeah, that's it for that. And actually, that's it for this week's show. Haley, before we go, do you have anything for the nice people?
No, I'm sure. I think Nicole plugged this when she was here last week, but the Southwest Cannabis Trade Association convention's on April 20th or 21st.
Yes. Yeah. And
one of those I should know because I was going to plug it. But anyways, I'll be presenting there and probably going to present on some employment issues since that's been coming up quite a bit. So I hope to see you all there, and I'm hoping to give you all some good information.
Yeah, definitely, guys. So, if you want more information from Haley, we'll try to get her socials and everything. You guys can hit her up on Instagram. Do you want to give your socials right now too, or?
Sure. You can find me, I guess on Instagram at Repeat Relay. I post there occasionally, and on Facebook. I don't know how you find me, but I'm under my name on there somewhere. But otherwise, you can go to my firm's website, mmslawpc.com, if you want to know more about what it is that I do. But,
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Haley, and thank you for joining me. Again, guys, thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. This has been a good one. A little long on the legislative side, but a lot happened. So join me again next week. We'll have a new guest, a new co-host, and some new topics.